Ulquiorra versus As Nodt is a topic that's been floating around the community for quite some time now, presumably due to shared aesthetics between both characters having unnerving and downright creepy appearances. As Nodt more so than Ulquiorra, but it could also be because of how the two are polar opposites in terms of how they interact with the concept of human emotion. While Ulquiorra is devoid of emotion to the point that he struggles to understand its presence in other creatures, and especially in the humans he encounters who still resist him despite his overwhelming strength, As Nodt on the other hand takes advantage of and represents succumbing to your emotions and giving it to one's own fear of the future or worries of the past, so much so that once his opponents first realize their fear of him, the fight is already over. But with that being said, let's not waste any more time and dive straight into our discussion by going over both characters. As a Quincy among the ranks of the Sternritter serving under Juha, As Nodt possesses his own shrift, being F or the fear. In line with his unnerving appearance in comparison to the other Sternritter, As Nodt's shrift allows him to deeply ingrain a debilitating fear of himself into his opponents through the use of his thorns. These thorns also aren't necessarily required to create some kind of wound either, as just a brief moment of contact between his thorns and the skin is enough to begin the process of As Nodt's fear overtaking its prey. After this effect, it becomes difficult, if not impossible, for As Nodt's opponents to attempt to fight against him in any meaningful capacity due to their arms and legs beginning to freeze out of fear as they crumble before him. His Voltstandig, Tartarforus, makes this shrift even more dangerous by surrounding his victims with his own eyes, through which he instills fear into you through the eyes or optic nerves, meaning that the very moment you've seen him, it's already too late. While this in and of itself is already quite powerful in its own right, he can seemingly induce this fear effect through his very spiritual pressure as well, but he also has some decent physical showings to go along with this shrift's power. Being one of the Sternritters to partake in the first invasion of the Cerate, As Nodt gets to fight both Byakuya and Renji. Though Byakuya at first is able to tear through the blue vein of As Nodt's hands while only in his Shikai, the new Thousand Year Blood War anime goes out of its way to concretely demonstrate As Nodt's superiority to Byakuya, by having him block every single attack thrown at him by the released Senbon Zakura, defending against it through the use of his aforementioned Blute Vein and essentially forcing Byakuya into the maneuver of still using his Bankai despite knowing that they can be sealed by the Quincy. According to Assistant Captain Sasakibe's report, they possess some means of sealing our Bankai, however they are an enemy that cannot be defeated without using Bankai. You should know that. After its activation, As Nodt is still able to react to and not just seal Senbon Zakura Kagayoshi, but also steal it for his own use. Senbon Zakura Kagayoshi scales either to or above Byakuya in speed, as back in the Soul Society arc, Byakuya notes that he lost sight of Ichigo and could not react to him when he held his Zanpakuto to his throat, yet he is equally as surprised or even more so when Ichigo can then dodge and react to the barrage of Senbon Zakura Kagayoshi. As Nodt then uses Byakuya's own Bankai to put him near death, but still demonstrates the ability to react to and damage Byakuya with his thorns beforehand. What's interesting, however, is a statement that comes after Byakuya's defeat from Jugram and the fake Juha, where Jugram says, "It seems Byakuya Kuchiki is dead. It took longer than we expected." The fake Juha then appears to agree with Jugram, saying it did. The lack of ruthlessness is the Sternritter's only flaw. This small exchange tells us that not only is As Nodt already superior to Byakuya in the first invasion through what he demonstrates on screen, but the other Sternritter like Jugram actually expected As Nodt to take out Byakuya much quicker than he actually did, and this has weight when you consider that the Quincy army, while hidden away in the Wandenreich, has indeed been keeping tabs on the Soul Society, monitoring the 13 court guard squads and their battles to know how strong they are as well as their abilities before they make their move with their first invasion, making As Nodt look even more impressive in this exchange with Byakuya. Aside from this, we do learn that there is in fact a weakness to his shrift during his battle with Rukia in the second invasion, that being that his fear can only affect things that are alive, meaning that if you somehow manage to find a way to temporarily kill yourself, like Rukia does with the true form of Sare no Shirayuki, then you can resist or outright negate his fear effect, but he can still counter this with his Voltstandig to some degree. With that being said, however, that's about all the information we need regarding As Nodt, and we can now move on to his opponent. Ulquiorra Cypher is a character who sparks quite a bit of debate within the Bleach community for a variety of different reasons, all probably too big to get into here in this video, but that I will at some point in the future. But the most important to this discussion and what serves our purposes within this video is dissecting his placement within the Espada. While many like to debate about Ulquiorra utilizing the power of his Segunda Etapa against other Arrancars such as Baragon or Stark, what's most important is how exactly he stacks up against Yammy. Yammy is an Arrancar that the audience is initially led to believe is on the weaker side of Aizen's army of hollows, as he is placed at number 10 below even Aranero, who doesn't even meet the base requirements of what is required to become an Espada, as he is only a Gillian in comparison to his peers who mostly consist of Vasto Lorde tier hollows. Though this is the case at first, once he releases his Zanpakuto, his rank jumps from the 10th Espada up to the 0 Espada, implying that he is now the strongest among them. Yammy himself boldly declares that while in his Resurrección, he makes the other Espada that Ichigo has faced up until this point, which includes characters like Nödt, Grimmjow, and Ulquiorra, look like garbage. Many hold issues with this statement from Yammy, as he is admittedly not the smartest among the Arrancar and is known to have a less than desirable level of efficiency in regards to his use of Pesquisa. For those of you who may not know, Pesquisa is an ability utilized by Arrancars that allows them to sense surrounding sources of Reiatsu by sending out something resembling a radiating pulse, and gauge how strong these nearby sources of Reiatsu should reasonably be as a result. Meaning that if Yammy is bad at utilizing Pesquisa, he shouldn't be able to properly sense how strong Ulquiorra is to take this statement at face value. While I agree this is a fair stance to take in regards to Yammy's own view of himself in comparison to Ulquiorra, this same sentiment is reiterated by other more so reliable sources like Ichigo, who seems to agree that Yammy may actually be stronger than Ulquiorra even after seeing him go into a second release, with Databook 3 Unmasked also containing excerpts such as, undergoes gigantification and metamorphosis fueled by anger. It's capable of further enlargement through accumulated anger. Upon transforming into Resurrección, it unleashes the true power of the 0 Espada. Or, Yammy's body grows immensely due to his intense anger. In order to support his own colossal body, his legs multiply to a total of 12. Furthermore, as Yammy's body enlarges, his strength and power also double, surpassing Grimmjow, Nödt, and even Ulquiorra. A final detail that makes the last excerpt even more decisive is that it comes after the Databook 3 page discussing Ulquiorra's second resurrection on page 27, following it on page 47. Now that we've established that Yammy is stronger than Ulquiorra, let's go over what Yammy does in Hueco Mundo after he achieves his Resurrección, being mainly his battle against both Byakuya and Kenpachi. Despite his newly attained power being quite formidable, both Byakuya and Kenpachi are able to damage and eventually defeat him, while only suffering a handful of injuries at Yammy's hands. Many attempt to discredit Byakuya by saying that not only did Kenpachi do the heavy lifting against Yammy, but also go on to cite how Kenpachi feels that when Yammy collapses to the ground, that he is one hit away from death, but Byakuya does not believe that this is the case, and that Yammy may have more fight in him, meaning that Byakuya would be weaker than both Kenpachi and Yammy himself. However, not only is Kenpachi bad at sensing spiritual pressure, which is something that Kenpachi admits when talking to himself, as well as something Byakuya points out and he does not refute, but Databook 3 Unmasked also makes some interesting remarks regarding this three-way encounter, specifically stating that the duo of Byakuya and Kenpachi were more so interested in fighting each other than they were with fighting the actual enemy in Yammy, ignoring him completely, or other excerpts saying that the two viewed their battle against Yammy with a shared sentiment, as a complete and total bore. With this information, I believe it is now impossible to deny that not only is Byakuya stronger than Yammy, but he should be naturally stronger than Ulquiorra as well, even at this period of the story. Byakuya would then go on to get stronger after the events of the Arrancar arc up until the first invasion, as he's continued to train after his loss to Ichigo, meaning things already don't look so good for Ulquiorra, considering that As Nodt fights and puts a stronger Byakuya on his deathbed than the one that fights Yammy, who is the 0 Espada that surpasses Ulquiorra. But putting aside how they physically compare to each other for just a moment, let's talk a bit about how their abilities would interact with one another. While Ulquiorra himself doesn't have very many insanely unique hacks, there's been a widespread misconception throughout the community as to how he would match up against As Nodt's Shrift. Ulquiorra's aspect of death among the Espada is nihilism or nothingness, and this is characterized by a complete disregard for the emotions he finds in those around him, alongside what seems to be a complete abandonment of their very concept within himself. Many interpret this to mean that As Nodt's fear would therefore not have any effect on Ulquiorra, who feels and finds meaning in nothing, but this is clearly not the case when using the description given to us of the Shrift within the manga. As Nodt himself says, "Fear that has a cause is easy. It can be stopped with will or experience. As long as there is a cause, if the root of that cause can be severed, that fear-like thing can be removed. But true fear has no cause. That's because it is not an emotion. It is instinct. True fear has no cause, no limits. It is like countless flies crawling up your body. We cannot escape from instinct." Ulquiorra containing neither any meaning nor emotion isn't a factor due to the fear of As Nodt's shrift being solely based on instinct, which is present in all living creatures, and as Nodt himself says, there is no escape. Those who would argue for Ulquiorra often draw reference to how hollows are widely known to be a poison to Quincies, to the extent that Quincies aim to outright eradicate hollows as opposed to the Shinigami who cleanse them. But given that we've already been over how As Nodt is superior to Ulquiorra in both strength as well as speed, I don't think Ulquiorra will have any time to properly utilize this single advantage in his favor in any meaningful capacity. As Nodt being faster and stronger than Ulquiorra also doesn't bode well with the fact that Ulquiorra is almost entirely a physical fighter with no worthwhile abilities to make up for the disparity of stats within this fight, meaning that not only does he get overwhelmed physically almost immediately, but the gap only starts to widen more and more once the fear effect from As Nodt's thorns begin to seep itself into Ulquiorra, and he has trouble controlling his body. Even if you're somehow not convinced that the thorns can't actually tag Ulquiorra, As Nodt's Volt standing will make it practically impossible for Ulquiorra to avoid the fear ability as it enters his body through his optic nerves. While many highlight the abilities of other Sternritter such as the Visionary, I believe As Nodt's The Fear is fairly underrated considering that it has the capacity to outright nerf anyone As Nodt comes across so long as he is physically capable to or superior to his opponent, the latter being the case here. With no showings to compare to As Nott's strength or speed, as well as no real answer to a Shrift's power, especially with the use of his Volt standing, I do believe As Nodt crushes Ulquiorra and it's not close. But with that being said, however, I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I have other Bleach content on my channel for you to check out if you're interested, such as my recent video ranking the Schutzstaffel or another video discussing Aizen vs Yamamoto, but I will continue to upload more videos in the future about Bleach as well as a variety of other topics, so subscribe for free to be notified of what I get up to in the future, such as when I upload or stream. Like the video to support both the channel and myself, as well as let me know that this is the type of content you want to see. Comment down below if I missed anything or with any suggestions you may have for the future. Thank you all for watching, and have a blessed day.